Here is the coat of arms of the McGovern family. The lion symbolizes courage, and the 3 crescent moons symbolize wisdom. There is a story behind this coat of arms that is unknown to many of us today. Join us now as we look back to the origins of our Irish heritage. The character of the McGovern family, like that of Irish people generally, owes a great deal to prehistoric peoples who came from the continent to settle in the Emerald Isle. The best known of these continental invaders are the Celts. The Celts were the masters of iron. They swept across the face of Europe in 500 BC, conquering Bronze Age peoples with their superior weaponry. In Ireland, the Celts settled and mixed with the Gauls, earlier bronze-bearing invaders, and with the native lake-dwelling peoples. The Celts' coming brought an age of peace from outside invasions to the island. This time of peace was known as the Golden Age of Ireland. The glory of the high courts of Tara and the rich northern Celtic kingdoms is recorded in Gaelic books of Irish legendary, such as the Táin Bó Cúailnge. Testaments to the wealth of the Irish Celts, such as these, outnumber those produced by any kingdom in Europe. Now in the Irish National Museum, these treasures evoke the glorious heritage of the Celts in the minds of the Irish of all generations. The McGovern clan is said to have descended from the famous King Fergus of Connacht. His exploits with the Druids are a central story in the Táin Bó Cúailnge. Druidism was a religion of the ancient Celts. Druids worshipped in huge stone rings, commonly called ring forts. The temple of the most powerful Celtic deity, the god of thunder, Crom Cruach, was located in what is now County Cavan, Ireland, near the ancestral home of the McGovern clan. Legends tell of the terrible worship that the Crom exacted from his followers, including the annual sacrifice of Irish children. The high kings themselves traveled from Tara to worship this cruel god. The arrival of St. Patrick in the 5th century put an end to this terrible worship. One of St. Patrick's first acts was to confront the false god Crom. Legend has it that the central stone of the Crom's ring fort cracked when St. Patrick entered it. St. Patrick and his gentler Christian god were eagerly received by the people of the region. Records show that the first McGovern to receive baptism was Duach Galach, king of Connacht, baptized by St. Patrick in 435 AD. The gentler god did not inspire entirely gentle behavior in the Irish people. Perhaps inheriting the ways of their Celtic ancestors, the Christian Irish engaged in fierce battle with their fellow countrymen. Centuries of freedom from outside invasion allowed for the development of an inheritance system based on family identity. In late medieval Ireland, the source of pride and power became the extended family or the clan. This book contains the history of the McGovern family. Written in 1250 AD, it is the earliest known Irish family history, or Donair. The old Irish family name for McGovern was McShamerdain, a name derived from the Irish word for summer. The McShamerdain's principal castle was in what is now Ballymcgovern in southern Cavan. Portions of the book may have been performed to the harp at feast time. Little is left now to remind us of those glorious times. These are the remains of Lissanover Castle in County Cavan, Ireland. Once owned by the McGovern clan, now all that is left is an old tree clinging to a bit of rock. In the 16th century, the McGoverns were pushed out of their southern Cavan castles to this bleak wasteland. A respite in England's long-term battle with France allowed the English to aggressively lay claim to the title Lords of Ireland, which they had held since the invasion of the Normans in 1156. The English took the choicest lands and forced the Irish to resettle in their own country, exacting rent from Irish families on what had once been Irish land. These photographs show some of the tactics employed by the English, such as battering rams, to drive out the Irish who'd grown too poor to pay their rents. This song tells of the valiant resistance efforts mounted by our McGovern ancestors against the English.
Glengevlin, you have witnessed great scenes of grief and woe, when extermination swept our lands a few short years ago. When Lord Annesley's cursed troops did come, all armed ruthlessly, to exterminate and confiscate the struggling tenantry. When the dreadful cry was raised on high, the wolf is in the fold, St. Patrick's sons in thousands run, they were always firm and bold. Each maiden man inside of Glen all came so firm and true, to sympathise with the evicted and condemn the landlord's crew.
Good man.
The McGoverns living in Glengevlin, County Cavan, still persevere with a very simple yet difficult lifestyle. The turf is still cut for fuel by these McGoverns high up in the mountains of Glengevlin. Here the family pauses for a midday tea after a long morning of turfing. In the mountains of Glan, the sheep are still shorn by hand. Shearing scissors make quick work of this white fleece. The shorn sheep are then marked with red dye by the family so that their animals can be identified. It is the execution of these daily chores that makes us American McGoverns look with admiration upon our Irish relatives. Here, Irish soda bread is kneaded by hand. The mountain land must be turned to prevent the loss of nutrients in the soil. The Irish bread may still be baked in a crocked pot with the coals on top. In short, farm life continues much as it did centuries before. The Great Potato Famine in the 19th century forced numbers of our Irish ancestors to immigrate. Many made their way to what they saw as the land of opportunity, America. prejudice followed those first Irish to this country, often making this land one of very limited possibilities for them. In spite of these barriers, several McGoverns were able to achieve fortune and stature in the New World. Perhaps the best example of this is Patrick McGovern, the subway builder, who contracted out a major portion of the New York subway system in the early 20th century. He was a boy of humble beginnings. These are the remains of Pat McGovern's family home in Glengevlin. McGovern used his organizational skills to build a loyal team of experts who successfully outbid competing companies for the contract of the No. 2 water tunnel, a tunnel whose depth equaled that of the Panama Canal. This photograph shows Pat McGovern and the men of his company at a dinner with Mayor Jimmy Walker of New York. This family tree outlines the connections between Pat McGovern and many of our other known relatives, here and in Ireland. In 1981, many of the members of this family tree traveled from various parts of the United States to join our first family reunion. Young and old had an opportunity to meet and decipher relationships or talk about family ties. Although differences between the American and Irish McGoverns manifest themselves in lifestyles, Irish children and American children share quite a bit in their upbringings today. There are many faces to the name McGovern. These faces may be separated by thousands of miles, except on occasions such as our family reunion. Much of this film has focused on looking to the past and retelling the history from which the McGovern family emerged. We hope that knowledge of this common ground will foster an understanding of the different backgrounds that our family embraces today. Now our story comes to a close with this rising sun, symbolizing the Irish summer from which our name is derived.